The trading post orbited a dying star, its metal corridors reeking of ozone and desperation. Captain Thalin of the merchant vessel Prosperity had seen worse places, but not many. He walked beside Ambassador Riloth, whose silver robes marked him as a dignitary from the Celestial Accord, the governing body that claimed dominion over 12 star systems and twice as many species. They stopped before a reinforced cage in the station's lower hold. Inside crouched a human. The creature was filthy, covered in dried blood and grime. Its hair hung in matted tangles around a face marked with bruises and cuts. Chains bound its wrists and ankles. When it looked up, its eyes burned with an intelligence that made Thalin's scales prickle with unease. Wretched savage, Riloth spat, his mandibles clicking with disgust. This is what the Accord paid 3,000 credits for? A feral beast from some backwater world? Thalin said nothing. He had learned long ago that silence was the merchant's best friend. The human shifted, chains rattling. Its lips moved, forming words in a language neither alien understood. The translator on Riloth's collar remained silent. Either the device was broken, or the human's language was too obscure for the database. It cannot even speak properly, Riloth continued. The report said these creatures were primitive, but I expected something more than an animal. He turned to Thalin. You will transport it to the research station on Kelvin Prime. The scientists there wish to study its regenerative properties before we begin the mining operations on its homeworld. Thalin's tail twitched. Mining operations meant only one thing: the complete exploitation of whatever resources existed there. If intelligent life was in the way, the Accord had ways of dealing with that problem. Usually permanent ways. The human spoke again, louder this time. Still, the translator offered nothing. Quiet beast, Riloth snapped, producing a shock rod from his robes. He thrust it between the cage bars. The human moved faster than Thalin thought possible. It caught the rod with one chained hand and yanked hard. Riloth stumbled forward, his face nearly pressed against the bars. The human's other hand shot out, grabbing a fistful of silver robes. For 3 heartbeats, they stayed frozen like that. The human's eyes locked with Riloth's, and Thalin saw something pass between them. Not hatred, exactly. Something colder. Something that promised a future reckoning. Riloth jerked backward, tearing his robes free. His breathing came in rapid gasps. Savage, he hissed. You see? Barely sentient. Loaded onto your ship, Captain. I want it off this station within the hour. He left without another word, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. Thalin approached the cage slowly. The human had retreated to the far corner, watching him with those unsettling eyes. The captain had transported many species in his 30 years of service, but something about this one disturbed him in a way he could not name. I mean you no harm, he said, knowing the human could not understand. But I have my orders. The loading took 20 minutes. 4 armed guards escorted the cage to the Prosperity's cargo bay, where it was secured with magnetic clamps. Thalin gave instructions that no one was to approach it without his express permission. His crew, a mix of Kelvins and Draxi, were happy to obey. They had all seen the footage of humans fighting in the arena pits on Torthan Station. Vicious, brutal, and utterly without the surrender instinct that most species possessed. The journey to Kelvin Prime would take 8 days through normal space, then another 3 through the hyperspace lanes. Thalin settled into his routine, checking navigation, monitoring the engines, and trying not to think about the cargo in his hold. On the 3rd day, his second officer, Gren, came to him with troubling news. The human is not eating, Gren said, his blue scales darkening with concern. We have offered it 3 different protein sources, water, even some of the fruit from our stores. It refuses everything. Thalin rubbed his snout. Perhaps it cannot digest our food. Perhaps it chooses death over captivity, Gren replied quietly. That thought had occurred to Thalon as well. He went down to the cargo bay and stood before the cage. The human sat in the same position as before, but its eyes had dimmed. Its breathing was shallow. Stubborn creature, Thalon murmured. He ordered a medical scanner brought down. The readings confirmed his fears. The human was starving itself. Another 4 days, and it would be dead. The Accord would not pay for a corpse. That night, Thalon made a decision that would change everything. He went to the cargo bay alone, carrying a tray of food from his personal quarters. Not the standard protein slurry they fed to cargo, but real food. Roasted grain, fresh vegetables grown in the ship's hydroponics bay, and clean water in a proper cup. He set the tray down outside the cage bars. I do not know if you understand me, he said, but I am not your enemy. I am simply a merchant following orders. If you die, another will take your place. Your sacrifice will mean nothing. The human did not move. Thalon sighed and turned to leave. He made it 3 steps before he heard the scrape of movement behind him. When he looked back, the human had moved to the bars. It reached through, pulling the tray closer. Its hands trembled as it brought food to its mouth. There, Thalon said softly. That is better. For the first time, the human spoke clearly enough for the translator to catch fragments. Not animal, it said. Human, understand. Thalon's blood ran cold. You speak our language? Learning, listening. The human took another bite of food. Your machine speaks. I learn. By the ancestors, Thalon breathed. How long have you understood us? Since Cage? Since Trader Spit. The human's mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. Ambassador, Reloth, I remember. Thalon should have left then. Should have reported this to the Accord immediately. Instead, he found himself sitting on a crate near the cage. What is your name? Name is David, the human said. I am Soldier. Was Soldier. Before they take, how did they capture you? David's expression darkened. Ship crashed. Our ship. Exploration vessel. We thought system empty. We were wrong. He touched the bruises on his face. They kill crew. Keep me. For tests, they say. For science. I am sorry, Thalon said, surprising himself with his sincerity. Why sorry? You not kill them. You just carry me to next cage. David's eyes fixed on him. But you bring food. Why? Thalon had no answer. Or rather, he had too many answers, and did not like any of them. Over the next 5 days, Thalon visited the cargo bay each night. He brought food and water. He spoke with David, teaching him more of the common tongue. In return, David told him about Earth, about humanity's first stumbling steps into space, about the wonder and terror of discovering they were not alone in the universe. We thought we would find friends, David said on the 7th night. We thought others would be curious, peaceful. We were foolish. Not all species are like the Accord, Thalon replied. Some of us are simply trying to survive. By serving them. By carrying their slaves. David's voice held no accusation, only sadness. You are a good person, Captain. But you serve evil thing. The words haunted Thalon as they approached Kelvin Prime. His orders were clear. Deliver the human to the research station. Collect his payment. Move on to the next job. He had followed such orders 1,000 times before, but this time felt different. This time, he knew the cargo's name. They docked at Kelvin Prime at dawn. The research station sprawled across the planet's northern continent, a vast complex of laboratories and holding cells. Thalon had delivered specimens here before. He knew what happened behind those walls. The experiments. The vivisections. The casual cruelty disguised as Science Ambassador Reloth waited at the receiving dock with 24 armed guards. "Captain Fallon," he said, "I trust the journey was uneventful?" "Quite," Fallon led. "Excellent. My guards will handle the transfer from here." Reloth gestured toward the Prosperity. "Bring the creature out." Fallon nodded to Gren, who activated the loading ramp. The magnetic clamps released, and 4 crew members began pushing the cage toward the exit. David sat motionless inside, his eyes fixed on some distant point. They were halfway across the dock when it happened. David stood in one fluid motion. His hands, still chained, reached up and gripped the bars above his head. He pulled. The cage was built to hold a thrashing Kelvin Worthing. It was rated for 2 tons of pressure. It should have been unbreakable. David's muscles bulged. Veins stood out on his arms. A sound emerged from his throat, something primal and terrible. The bar bent, then another. Then the whole top of the cage shrieked and tore away. Guards rushed forward, weapons raised. David moved through them like water through a net. He was still chained, still wounded, still half-starved. It should not have been possible. He reached Reloth in seconds. The ambassador stumbled backward, shock rod falling from nerveless fingers. David caught him by the throat, lifting him off the ground. His face was calm, almost gentle. "Wretched savage," David said, using Reloth's own words. "You spit on me. Call me beast." He leaned close. "But I am human, and humans remember." 20 weapons trained on David's back. One word from Reloth, and he would be atomized. Reloth said nothing. David set him down carefully. "I go now," he said simply. "You not follow." He turned toward the dock's far exit. Nobody moved to stop him. Not the guards. Not Fallon. Not even Reloth, who stood trembling, one hand on his bruised throat. David paused at the doorway. He looked back at Fallon and spoke in clear, perfect,